Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Two Peas in a Podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we discuss all things that believe pertain to uh, spirit and faith, or the lack thereof, in the Black community. And today, joining me after a brief respite is P1, Paul Mosley.
Right. Well, Wonka, welcome to another edition of Two Peas in the Podcast. As Phil said, this is our second program together. Phil took the reins last week because I was unavailable. But again, the reason that we brought this show out, and I'm glad that there's going to be some folks that have not seen our show for the first time, have tuned in, is because we thought it would be a good thing to bring out the dialogue as it relates to Christianity, take some of the fear of communicating openly about where we are and possibly where you are as it relates to Christianity. So we wanted to bring this platform out for you to do just that.
Right. And just for the record, we stated this on the first show that there's a spectrum of beliefs with regards to a deity, God, call it whatever you want. But and on that spectrum, I would be on the far end, either left or right, being atheist, and Paul is somewhat to the right of me, or to the right of being atheist, and is agnostic. Would you say?
Right. I would consider myself an agnostic only because there are things I just don't understand. There's answers that I don't have, but I probably lean more in the direction of atheism as it relates to me not being a theist and believing that there are things that I used to just accept on face value that I can't anymore because of the things that I've experienced in my life. Um, it's, as I said in the first program, a little scary to come out and actually acknowledge where I am right now because of the stigma associated with not being a believer and what people may have as a perception of you, the change of perception in you because you are coming out saying that you just don't believe as you used to in this uh, omnipotent, all-knowing, all-powerful God that is looking down and having favor on Christians in general. And just to kind of piggyback off of what Phil is saying, I'd like to bring this conversation not just to the Black community, but to the community at large as it relates to Christianity, because uh, it is an industry. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we need to be honest and open about what it really means and some of the subject matters related to it.
And Paul, that's a perfect setup because the theme of today's show is the seduction of Christianity, and some people may find that an odd choice of words, but the reason that I thought it would be appropriate to sort of talk about this is because, as Paul just mentioned, Christianity in America is a huge, huge business, and one of and it's there are 385,000 churches in America. I would challenge you one day to get a clicker, call it a church clicker, and every time you see a church or poster about Christianity uh, in in your day to day ongoings to and fro, you'd be amazed at how intense the proselytization. What's the word I'm looking for? You being amazed at how intense it is that you're being bombarded with the messages and the images that exist, or just on a regular day to day basis. And so, with that in mind, uh, we want to make sure that you understand that everyone who happens to be listening tonight, we hope that you call in. And again, we're not asking anyone to defend their position. We just hope that people can explain how it is that in 2024 they continue to embrace religion and Christianity against all evidence. So before I go any further, Paul, when you first heard the selection of the theme, what came across your mind when you heard the seduction of Christianity? What did you think of?
when I saw the seduction of Christianity, uh, I viewed it from a lens of allure, temptation, and also from the lens of the fact that we are brought up into this belief system that we accept regard without any what word do I want to use, without, because of our parents or the family, the community, that they indoctrinated us into this faith. We accepted it, and the fear associated with coming to terms with what is really happening in the world, as opposed to what we've been taught is going on and who's in control. Uh, as it relates to my journey, my evolution from Christianity, things like childhood cancer, and trying to understand what meaning or what the rationale behind a singular, omnipotent, all powerful, all knowing God would have in allowing a child, an innocent child, to be inflicted with cancer. It just didn't make sense. The whole slavery thing just did not make sense to me, and I allowed my thoughts of why to just drift away, because of course there's faith. You just have to have faith. There must be some reason behind it. The Holocaust just didn't make sense to me. The fact that when things went wrong, it was Satan to blame, even though if God created everything, God created Satan. So God gets off the hook, and Satan gets blamed for something that is happening bad. And as we said in the first program, I always go back to the airplane crash scenario where, let's say, there's 173 people on board, and of the 173 people, 170 of them die, but 3 live. Well, those 3 are considered a miracle, but the 170, it's God's will. There's really no discussion as to why God allowed those 170 to die, but those 3 to live. So,
Well, but Paul, I think you raise a very good point about how people rationalize it, and that's where I was thinking about when I came up with the idea of the seduction of Christianity. There is a powerful pull. There's a sort of like a gravitational pull towards the Christianity, because it makes you feel as if something like that does happen, that you're special, you're entitled, and that happens on a daily basis, where people believe that God has singled them out, God has blessed them, God has made you feel that if you believe in Him, and know her, but if you believe in Him, that somehow that your life will be better.
Right.
And it just happens to me every day. But that seduction also reminds me that we begin to indoctrinate their children early on, and it's important, I think, that we understand that there's a reason why church leaders want children in the church. There's a reason why organized religion wants to take over or wants to have a strong say so in the education of our children. Mm-hmm. It's because they're able to shape those minds when they're most malleable, and that allows them to then groom them for future participation in the church. And so this idea that Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. So we have children waking up and going to school and on Sunday singing that song and believing that somehow this character, this symbol, this idea of a man that existed 2,000 some odd years ago actually loves this individual child, and this child is reminding themselves on a daily basis. And what do in the community? We reinforce that. Mm-hmm. We reinforce that. We make it clear that somehow God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. We always go to that point where no matter what happens, we always believe that what must be in God's plan. Right. It must be His will. And if you allow yourself to be pulled into that, you are being seduced because you believe that by holding on to this belief that somehow your life, your singular life, is going to be better. And I wonder why we continue to believe that when in 2024 and 2023 and the years before, we can go case by case and with evidence to show that that is not the case. And I'll say one more thing, that a lot of times on Facebook, I will use real world examples of how it is for me impossible to believe that a God exists because tragedies that befall children. And Paul, you brought up childhood cancer, but I'll bring up when children are innocently slaughtered, either through accidental gunshots or sitting innocently in a car and a bullet ricochets off of something and that child winds up not surviving that gunshot. And my question is always, how would a God allow that when that God who's all powerful, all knowing, knew that it was going to happen, and is all present, omnipresent, that God would not intervene.
Yeah.
And but people continue to believe, even despite that tragedy, people still are lured into believing that, well, you just got to believe.
Right. And I believe that it's in addition to an allure, it's a security blanket. And I believe that's what keeps some people from being honest about the things that are happening in the world, because they believe that if they remove that security blanket, then they're open to anything that can happen, even though it happens anyway. And I use the Facebook analogy, where you have folks that say, "Hey, I need you guys to pray for my uncle because he was diagnosed with cancer, and so he's gonna need. I need all my prayer warriors to come out and pray for my uncle." And you see all the praying hands, and weeks or months later, you see that same person back on Facebook saying, "I just want to thank all my prayer warriors for coming out and praying for my uncle. God had other plans. He got his wings this morning." And my first thought is like, so what? Did they fall a prayer warrior or two short? What caused this person not to be saved by God? And he was prayed for by many, many people, And I use my own personal story. When I was diagnosed with cancer, it was at the point where I was transitioning away from Christianity, and it was the first time that I wasn't able to ask God to take the cancer out of my system, because in my mind, I felt like, well, he allowed the cancer to get in my body, so why would I ask him to take it out if he already knew, first of all, that it was there, secondly, that if it stays there, it's going to kill me, so I don't have to ask. So then, that's another thing I have a question about, why is prayer necessary if God knows all? He knows what you need. Why do you need to ask for it? And I wore this shirt. This is sort of a change of subject, but I wear this shirt because of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm sorry. This is actually Israel and Palestine, and the fact that in the Gaza Strip, Israel and the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, it's basically genocide over there. And I don't have a good explanation for why God would allow something like that to happen. And I wanted to, before we go any further, let folks know that are tuned in, they can call in. The number's what? 216
584
584 2400. So if you like to...
No, that's not it.
That's not
216
543, right?
4.
Okay.
Oh, what's that? 2400. I'm sorry. 584.
584. So it's 216 584 5400.
Thank you, Larry.
We would love for you to chime in, to share where you are as it relates to Christianity, your journey, why you continue to have that value system, or what made you, like me and like Phil, to start questioning some of those values. But as it relates to Israel and Palestinians, and the fact that we as a country, we support Israel regardless of what they do, the genocide, the homicide, the things that are going on over there. That just further makes me question, why would God allow that? And so that kind of put me into the mindset of there could not be a singular, omnipotent, all-knowing God that's looking out for the best interests of His children down here on earth, and that's why I have questions. I lean more in the direction of atheism, but I consider myself an agnostic because if there are answers, I'm open to hearing them.
Well, Paul, you used a word that really sticks out for me, and that is the word saved. That is that's one of the great marketing campaigns that is used by the Christian industry, and I say that because it starts off with Jesus saves. Jesus can save you. Being a Christian can save you. The question I always have is, save me from what? And it's always from eternal damnation. And that, again, is part of the allure that you're going to spend all of your waking hours on this earth fighting against, fighting to prevent yourself from being in that pit of hell or fire and damnation or whatever it's called. But the word using that word saved, it hits you. I'm saved. People use it as a way to express their Christianity. People use it as a way to proselytize, to say, Jesus saves and you need to be saved. And I can even remember when that whole phraseology became more pronounced when Jimmy Carter injected his faith into the presidential campaign back in 1976, I think it was, but around that time. But my point is that this idea of the seduction of Christianity is that there are certain things that are done to make you feel that this is the only way forward because of the outcome. You will be saved. You won't go to hell. That your life will be somehow better if you believe. And the thing that troubles me as someone who does not believe is that there's a lot of time and energy that is expended. Oh, time, energy, and money that is expended around this notion of faith and belief. And Paul, for me, if you think about what are the two things that as humans we never get back, but one of the two things that, particularly for Black folks, when it comes to time and money, we're playing catch up in a system that only 150 years ago, 200 years ago, where our ancestors were still picking cotton for no wages. But we've convinced ourselves that by believing in Jesus, that somehow it's worth the time, the energy, and money. When one, there's no evidence that the results bear out, but two, we don't get that time back. Right. We that money that could be going to uplift a family doesn't come back because they feel they've got to give 10% of their pre-tax income to it. So this is a well-oiled machine designed to seduce you into believing that by believing your particular life compared to others is going to be that much better. And that's a part that when I think about when people gather every Sunday, I'm like, okay, so I get it. You're socializing, you're networking, you're doing all those things, but given the scarcity of time, the scarcity of money, all those things that could be reinvested in a different way for us to think differently. But we're seduced. And there's a reason why we get together every Sunday. I mean, that's part of the seduction.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting when you think about church and the Bible. Some of the things as it relates to Christianity and the Bible kind of reminds me of some of the explanations that have been used when certain politicians say things that are crazy, and then some of their surrogates come on television to explain that they really didn't mean it like that, or they try to translate what they said into some acceptable conversation. So that same Bible, primarily the King James Bible for Christians, has in it things like Exodus 21:20 and 21, where it says, anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a result or as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. Now, that's in the Bible, Exodus 21:20 and 21. Why would that be in the Bible? Why would there be any reference to what's acceptable or unacceptable to do as it relates to another human being? Those are the types of things. Again, Leviticus 20 and 13. If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. That's Leviticus 20 and 13. This is the Bible that's used as for Christians to justify their belief in this God. But why would God say that someone that has sexual relations with another man should be put to death?
And that blood be on their head.
And blood would be on their head. So when you bring that to the attention of theologians or pastors, some of the questions that I've had, I go back into the Garden of Eden, as we talked about on a previous broadcast, where Adam and Eve go into this beautiful place and God tells them, everything here is for you. However, that tree over there, whatever you do, don't eat from the fruit of that tree, because if you do, you will surely die. Now, this is God who's omniscient, which means he's all-knowing, he's all-powerful, omnipotent. At best, it was a setup, because he had to know in advance that Adam and Eve could not resist the temptation of the fruit. So why would he put them in that environment? And I've said, having two sons, if one of my sons was addicted to crack cocaine, there's no way that I would put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the kitchen table next to a crack pipe and leave a note for my son, say, hey, son, I made lunch for you. It's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the kitchen table. There's milk in the refrigerator. Oh, by the way, there is a crack pipe on the kitchen table. Please don't smoke the crack. And I wouldn't do that because I know my son. And from a parental perspective, I wouldn't set him up for failure. So, again, we invite anyone that can kind of help us understand why God would have allowed some of the things that are happening in this world. I reference Ukraine and Russia when I'm wearing another conflict on my shirt, which is Israel and Palestine. But these are all things that are happening that supposedly this singular God is allowing to happen, that it just does not make sense to me.
Well, I'll go one step further than what you just said. In the Bible, the God shows a rainbow after he flooded the earth and drowned everything in it except two of every species, and Noah and 8 of his kids, and I guess one wife or whatever. But God, supposedly the interpretation of the rainbow is that would never happen again. Mm-hmm. So you look at what just happened with Hurricane Helene.
Right.
Hurricane Helene, and I mean, I was astounded at just the severity
I didn't know.
of the storm,
Yeah.
and it went from one night, oh, 10 people have died, and then the last thing I saw was 100 people have died.
Yeah. I saw 123 before I
Okay,
came here. Yeah.
123. So, and so the a book that says it's the inerrant word of God has said that God would never drown his children again. And we'll talk about the use of that's hierarchy, parent child, between God and his followers. But the fact that it went from 10 to 20, and despite the fact that supposedly there was a promise that was made, but it's overlooked quickly, and people say, well, as you referred to, some said, God called them home, God needed them, I'm like, well, does a supreme being, a deity, need to call one of his creations
Right.
home? That doesn't add up for me.
Right.
But it's set up in such a way that you can excuse God for what just happened in Helene, with Hurricane Helene, because, as you said, that the survivors will say, well, I survived. It's a miracle. So God is put into a different light, overlooking the fact that 123 people just lost their lives. And
At this point.
a week ago, they were alive and having and living their best life.
Right.
And now, unfortunately, they're gone.
Right.
But the way Christianity is set up is that's almost, and I hate to use this phrase, but it's almost like collateral damage, because God is not held accountable for just what he did. In fact, in some parts of North Carolina, an entire town is stranded.
Right.
Can't get out.
Right.
Stranded. And again, you add on the loss of life, and we're not even talking about the loss of property, injuries. We're talking about just 123 people dead over the weekend.
Right.
But yet this book, this faith, this religion continues to say, well, let's not worry about that right now, because your job is to be saved and to get ready for the rapture and to do this, and so let's overlook the tragedy that just happened as a force of nature, as a result of a force of nature such as Hurricane Helene.
Well, a lot of folks will say, well, it's in the Bible. This is all prophesized that, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, and there's going to be, all this turmoil and these things. And they talk about Revelation and how, things are going to get worse. And my question is, why? Why do they have to get worse? Why does God have to inflict, all of these horrible situations? It doesn't add up for me. That and if someone can help me understand it, I would really appreciate it. Psalms 137:9 says, "Happy is the one who seizes your infants and dashes them against rocks." Deuteronomy 22:28 and 29. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as he lives.
Wait a minute. That's in Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy 22:28 and 29.
That's not good.
No, but it's explained away. These are things that over time I stopped just reading and trying to find interpretations that made sense according to my belief system.
But Paul, what you just read, I mean, is basically condoning rape. It's condoning domestic violence. It's condoning subjugating a woman to the point where she has no say in her own body, and she is said that the man must marry her. I mean, wait a minute. What about the woman who was just violated? So it's just an assumption that she is going to marry the man that just violated, which doesn't make sense. And so this is the for me, you bringing out these certain passages from the Bible. It's 2024. How is that we go back to it reminds me of a doctor that would go back to a book that suggested using leeches to cure ailments. Right. You know, you're going back to a book that is proven not to have pivoted and kept up with the times, but more importantly, was just absolutely wrong. But how is it that the Bible can espouse these things and people still hold it up as holy, as again, use the phrase gospel? It doesn't work for me. It makes it's absolutely bonkers, right, that this book is still being used and referred to and held up and revered. I don't get it. I really don't.
In addition to that, you know, as it relates to hell, you know, the fact that, you know, this is supposedly our Heavenly Father that would subject one to eternal hellfire, not like burnout, you know, like, I mean, the fact that a God would be sadistic enough that if you didn't believe in him, mm-hmm, and didn't believe that his son died for you, which is also kind of why did there have to be a sacrifice? Why did there have to be blood?
Right.
Why couldn't God just say, you know, everybody is good?
Right.
Why did he have to send his son down here and watch his son get put on a cross to be sacrificed when he has the power to just, with a wave of whatever, make everything good for folks? A lot of things just don't add up, and as a result, I have come to a point where I'm like, you know, I'm just not going to accept things at face value. But on the same token, as a result, those things that I used to get angry at God about, I no longer do, because I don't blame God for the horrible things that are happening in the world right now. I just don't feel like there is that. Now, what I do tell people is, and that's probably where I'm in this agnostic frame of mind, is that I do believe that there are forces of good and forces of evil, but I don't believe that either force is more powerful than the other. And I just, I see so many examples of evil winning out, you know, and the devastation, the loss of life, like what's going on with Hurricane Helene, and the things that are going on over in Ukraine right now, where Putin is just dropping bombs and killing folks, and what's happening over in the Gaza Strip, where babies are being killed. And I just saw a report where they found young children being shot in the head, sniper style, over in the Gaza Strip. I mean, this, you know, they were trying to use the excuse that the IDF had to bomb these different places and kill these folks because they were hiding amongst the civilians. So that was the justification, right, for them going in and killing all of these civilians, because the Hamas was hiding behind them. But that didn't explain the sniper fire that was killing young children in that same region, you know. So it's interesting. And again, this isn't about bashing Christianity. It's about opening up the dialogue and being honest about where I am, where Phil is, where you might be. And again, we're open to hearing from others about where they are. And as we go forward with more programming, we hope that we can get some folks that may be on the fence about communicating with us about their feelings to call in and let us know where you are.
Well, you know, I would hope that people of faith would test their ability to explain, and by test, I'm not talking about pass or fail. Just to say that beyond the echo chamber of the Sunday morning social club, also known as church, that they are able to go back and forth. One things that we don't have enough of within, again, I know you say you want to open up to everyone, and I don't disagree, but it just in terms of what I know is that we don't debate enough
Right.
in the black community, and we should be willing to move forward and say, okay, I may not agree with what you, but I am going to hear what you have to say. I hope you hear what I have to say, and then we go back and forth with because that's the only way we're going to come up with a new way forward.
Right.
And you and I have been talking about this for a while. Part of it is that it's like that age-old definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We've got to find a new way forward. And I'm encouraged by the fact that a lot of younger people are not embracing religion as much as people that grew up in our generation. People are questioning that transference of trauma. People are questioning the inheritance of a particular belief system. I think that is a wonderful thing. But as of right now, in 2024, we still the percentage of African Americans, Black Americans who consider themselves Christian is still north of 80%. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. Another 10% might be Muslim or other, and then another 5 or 6 are like you and I. We're way in the minority, but that doesn't stop us from thinking that perhaps we can talk our way into a new vision for moving forward. Because one of the things about the seduction of Christianity is that they're brilliant. Christianity is a brilliant marketing organization, brilliant. And I say that sincerely because not only do they benefit from anyone that feels like they have that they've been called to the altar and to talk about what it is that they have their belief in God. But you take that 385,000, you take those 385,000 churches, you see that every Sunday that there is a message that is reinforced, that people don't take the time to say, okay, wait a minute, maybe not, because it's reinforced. You think about the way music is used. Music is a seductive force, because there are some songs that we've talked about this before offline, where even as an atheist, there are songs that you can't help but to say, oh, that's a really good song. But Christianity has infused the religion with so much song, and then it's infused into the culture with the images. Most likely a Jesus who happens to be in great shape, perfect hair, and a few other things. It's always interesting that the images of Jesus make him a very handsome man, and everything is always perfect. Given that there probably weren't any combs back in the day, his hair would have been a little bit more.
He probably would have had a robe that was a little more dirty,
just a little bit. It's always sparkling clean. It's always that. But those images are important. Because that perpetuates the seduction. Because he's always presented as a good looking guy in a sparkling white robe, and with a 6-pack, and I mean everything. I mean it's this is not by accident.
Right.
It's done to keep lure. And then this is a subject, I'll state it, and I'll just be honest. Part of the seduction of Christianity is that they've somehow convinced women that the relationship that they have with Jesus supersedes everything else. And if that's your case, I'm not here to bash it, but I'm questioning how, as a species of creature, of primates, we are at the top of the food chain. We're the apex predator and all that, but we're still human beings, and we still go back and forth. We still need that touch. We still need the things that make us human. But unfortunately, a lot of times, um, people um, they make their relationship with God as such that it supersedes everything else, and that is and it just doesn't it doesn't align with the real existence of people, because you know people have this relationship with a character in a book. That book is the Bible. As Kim Montero said, it's a string of stories that were stapled together, a compilation of stories, I should say, they're stapled together. But to believe that this person, and this is nothing to do with. I'm talking about the way that the word love is being used. You know, it's that Jesus loves you, and that you better know Jesus. You know, and this will solve everything. They've made the relationship with Jesus supersede everything. That's just not, to me. That's just not how life works. I mean, you know, because no one, to my knowledge, has ever met Jesus. You know, how do they know that Jesus loves them? You know, because the Bible said so. Right. Again, this just doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, and you know, to go back to the hell concept, the fact that you go to hell if you don't believe in the Christian philosophy, that would mean that Jewish people will go to hell. That means that Buddhists go to hell. Muslims, they will go to hell also, because if you don't believe that Jesus died, he was born, he died for our sins, then you are subject to hellfire. And when you try to ask Christians, you know, how they come to terms with folks that are good and were born in an environment where it was an Islamic environment, but they are good people. Why should they be subjected to hellfire? I think that a lot of folks, there may be more that have questions that may struggle, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this platform, because I do believe that fear is very potent, and the black community and religion in general. The ability to say that if you don't believe blindly, regardless of everything that's happened, if you don't believe, you're going to go to hell. That is what keeps some folks from coming to terms with what's really happening in this world. And it's actually one of the things that kept me from coming out, if you will, because like I said, it's almost like for me, acknowledging my lack of faith was something that I didn't want to do, at least publicly, because I didn't want to be ostracized
Right.
in my own community, in my own family. When I told my mom about it, it was pretty traumatic for her to hear that coming out of my mouth. You know, you would have thought that I was on fire, like hell was coming up from the you know, the depths of you know, and so it's not an easy thing to do, but I think if we really think about everything that's happening around us today, it's worth looking at.
Exploring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth looking at and considering. So, you know,
But here's the challenge, Paul. That the entire system, and again the organization, the infrastructure of Christianity is set up so that you don't get rewarded for thinking. You don't get rewarded for questioning. You know, you get rewarded for embracing the status quo. And another example is that Christians, particularly again amongst black folks, spend a lot of time making sure that their pastor is taken care of.
oh boy,
You know,
yeah.
and that time and energy is spent to make sure that the pastor has the best car, has all the things that prop up that pastor, and so the things that people get in return, they get to brag to their friends. You know, my pastor does this, my pastor does that, and this cycle will never be broken because people get rewarded along the way. There is that gravitational pull that Christianity has on people who refuse to even think outside of their current comfort zone. That as long as they continue to reinforce the values, the systems, the dogma, the theology, that they will go to heaven, that they are assured of going to heaven. And it's you know, asking people to step outside is really difficult for them to consider because there's so much that they have to give up. And you know, you've gone through it, I've gone through it, but I'm here to tell folks, you know, it once you remove yourself, you realize that life goes on, that what you thought you needed in terms of belief, you can transfer or redirect that energy into something else, and you still, you know, you're still able to get through life, and that this notion that, well, if you don't do it, you're going to hell. If you do it, hey, you got a chance at going to heaven. You know, not guaranteed, but you got a chance. You know, but you know, I'm really again, the reason we're doing this is to ask people to stop and think and question, you know, why it is that they believe what they believe. If you can look at the world in 2024 and say that your God, which is obviously one of 4,200 gods in the world, and actually, you know, after Christianity, there's Muslim, there's Hindu, there's a gazillion other religions, but that you got to step out and step back and question that, you know, yeah, I'm Christian, but I'm also one of 8 billion people in this world, and maybe I can look at things a little bit differently. I know it's asking a lot. I know it's asking a lot for $2. It's not going to get done, but we're just asking that you take the time to just think, to think.
I mean, you look at some of you talked about the pastors, the money, that's the billions of dollars that the Christian industry makes for some folks. You look at your Creflo Dollars, your Joel Osteens, and your I believe they say that Kenneth Copeland is worth $750 million.
Yes. Did you see the plane? Did you see the plane he flies in?
Yeah, the one he bought from
Elvis?
No. He bought it from the director, the guy that
Singleton, John Singleton?
No, I can't think of his name right now. But yeah, I mean, these are folks that have gotten filthy rich off of folks that are banking on, you know, streets of gold and the pearly gates when they leave here.
Right.
But these pastors are living heaven on earth right now.
Right now.
You know, but they're saying, you know, you'll just like during slavery, you know, they were promising slaves, you know, a better life and the afterlife, you know, in the by and by, you know, and that's what I think people are really banking on right now. They're banking on, well, you know, I don't want to say anything bad. I don't want to think anything because I want to make it to heaven. I know I'm living in hell right now.
Right.
But, you know, if I keep listening to Joel Osteen or Creflo Dollar or Kenneth Copeland or any of those folks, I probably will. And if I just stay faithful, regardless of the fact that, you know, I'm having all these adverse things happening in my life and to my family members, then, you know, when this is all said and done, when I go away from here, then I'm going to heaven, you know, and I won't burn in hell, which is, you know, so sadistic. I mean, so sadistic. Yeah, so sadistic in and of itself. Ephesians 5:22 and 24. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. And again, this is a Bible that was supposedly written by man, but inspired by God. But it sounds like it was more inspired by man because the things that are being written are very chauvinistic, and unfortunately, there are a lot of women that go, hook, line, and sinker. That hey, whatever you say goes. You can be the stupidest, you can make the worst decisions whatsoever, but because in Ephesians 5:22 and 24 it says the man is the head of the household, you submit. And there's also passages in the Bible that says that a woman cannot lead in the church. She cannot be a leader in the church. And why not? Those things that don't make sense, I no longer accept on face value. If they don't make sense, they just don't make sense. I think if there's anything I have as a faith, it's common sense.
That's a good place to start. Yeah, let's start there. And unfortunately, common sense is not all that common. But Paul, I would question how is it that in 2024, where you have information available on the internet, that people are not taking that next step? Why do you think that is? Because I mean, reading something like that suggests that is the very foundation of patriarchy in the world, but particularly in America. That the man is above all other things. Why do we continue to refer to it? But more importantly, why haven't people taken that next step with all the availability? Mm-hmm. You've got laptops, you've got smartphones. You can do your own research and realize that wait a minute. As you said, the Bible was written by men to make
justify
men,
their actions.
Their actions. Yeah, I mean, this is the same thing with the King James Bible. I mean, he rewrote the Bible so they could get divorced. Mm-hmm. I mean, so but why do we cling to this particular book when there's so many other ways to interpret the world that are based in science, that are based on facts and based Paul, you talked about I don't know if this was the other show, but one of the things that I find interesting is that the Bible continues to be used, but in 2024 it is still being used as a way to absolve oneself of responsibility. It's like yes. I can hold up the Bible and say, well, I'm not perfect. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm trying and that.
But I'm saved.
But I'm saved, right. But I'm good. Yeah. I'm good.
I can kill 16 people. I can be a serial killer. I can do all these things. But if last minute before I get executed, I accept Jesus Christ, I'm going to be right up there with the best of them.
With the best of them. But that's, I wanted, where I was going, one of the things I wanted to continue to talk about was this notion, again, the seduction of the Christianity is using the idea of a perfect human being. Mm-hmm. That's what you aspire to, aspiring to Jesus, who's supposedly perfect. Mm-hmm. One, how do we know that? What is the proof that he was perfect? But two, why? Again, it's a very seductive thing to say. Well, mm-hmm. I'm going to aspire to be perfect. When that is the most stressful thing you could put out there. Why would you even try to be perfect? Because mm-hmm. no matter how hard you try, mm-hmm. you never will be.
Right.
But if I give my 10% every Sunday, and I go to Bible study on Wednesday, and I go to church on Sunday, and I do this, I still got my seat reserved in heaven. But that's part of this notion that perfection is somehow within reach. Right. That to me is another great tool of seduction and a great marketing campaign to build the whole notion of why you exist is to try to be perfect. I had a friend who said that in her belief that everyone who if you reach the point of being Christ-like or being manifest all 100% of Christ, you will die. You will live. And the reason people die is because they didn't quite
short.
make it.
Yeah.
I'm like that is bizarre.
Yeah.
That you would put out there that yeah, if you're 100% Christ like, you won't die. Again, that's seduction. You won't die. But for the I think 16 billion people have preceded the current 8 billion. 16 billion people failed miserably, and they wound up dying.
Yeah.
But why would you even put that out there? It's such an unattainable goal. But that's the allure.
Yeah.
I can strive to be perfect. I can be Christ-like. I can do this.
But I think it's a lure. But I think on the other side is fear is very potent. Fear is very potent, and the fear factor associated with, if you don't, then you go to hell. We talked about belief in Santa Claus,
Right.
and how I told people that I believed in Santa Claus until I had proof that there was no Santa Claus. And no matter what I wanted to believe after I had that proof, I could not believe in Santa Claus.
Right.
The difference between letting go of Santa Claus and letting go of God is hell. And folks don't want to go to hell. So they hold on, I think, to the belief system in Christianity, regardless of everything that's happening around them, because of that potency of fear associated with, if you don't believe, you go to hell.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Fear is one of the most powerful motivating forces that exists. It's a very powerful force, and it's unfortunate that we're gripped by this fear. But I say to anyone listening that it's like the bully in school. If you step up to the bully leaves you alone. If you step up and confront this inherited belief system and say, okay, wait a minute, I'm gonna check you on this, then there's a good chance that you will be able to go forward without that monkey on your back of hell and fear and other things like that. So, Paul, it's Larry. It's about that time. Okay. So we've had a chance to talk about those things. I really hope that people would not be afraid to come onto the show, but we'll keep doing it because we believe that this is an important topic to discuss.
Yeah.
And sometimes the traction is not gained instantaneously. So.
Yeah. We'll continue to do this because. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, put them
Oh,
on.
hold on 1 second. Let me put you on the actual sound system there. Somehow it got knocked out. There we go. Hold on. Okay, you still there? Okay, 1 second here. Show's about to end and it dropped. Let me see. How do I get it back up there? Hold on a second. And won't go back. Hold on. 1 second. We'll get it there.
So we've got our producer working on getting a caller on the line.
Okay. All right, caller, go ahead. Tell me, go ahead, guys.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi. I've just been listening to your podcast, and I just wanted to make a brief comment. One is that I think there's a huge difference in Christianity versus spirituality. Christianity being that it's organized religion, and spirituality is that those individuals believe that there's a source in a universe that's greater than ourselves or man, that kind of dictates, so to speak, the purpose,
Okay.
for lack of better word.
Yeah.
You said something about people being more concerned with going to hell, and it's a matter of heaven and hell. And I think for Black people who were in slavery, you know, getting off of that boat, I don't think it was so much concern about heaven and hell that caused us to become rooted and grounded in religion as much as it was hope.
Well,
Because
I hate to
we were
interrupt.
being,
Okay.
you know, abused and all of the things that we went through. It was hope that we could get through it, you know.
Hey, we want to thank you
so-
for calling in, but the show is now over.
All right.
Call us in next week, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you, okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Definitely. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And we thank all of you for listening in.